What makes a battle unforgettable? Is it the clashing of swords, the thunder of hooves, or the emotional stakes? Depictions of battles and war are staples of the fantasy genre, but when they're not done right, they risk becoming little more than a chaotic mess, moments where nothing feels significant, and the audience is left wondering why they should care. The Battle of Helm's Deep in Lord of the Rings is a desperate last stand, where the people of Rohan fight against Saruman's overwhelming army. It's a masterclass in tension, blending personal courage and hope with a breathtaking final charge led by Gandalf. In Game of Thrones, the Battle of Blackwater showcases Tyrion proving himself as a leader with the use of wildfire to defend King's Landing, mixing shocking visuals with high personal stakes as characters face their limits amidst the chaos of war and confront the fragility of power.
Today, we're exploring what well-written war and battle stories do successfully, from concrete aspects such as battle choreography, description of the action and pacing, to making the conflicts being depicted work as character moments and solid story beats and complement the themes well. This topic was picked by you guys in the last community poll I ran, but the video about dark fantasy world building came as a close second, so we'll also be doing that soon enough. Without further ado, let's get to it.
When writing battle and war scenes, one of the first things to get right is clarity. It's easy for a fight to devolve into a confusing mess of swords swinging and bodies falling. To avoid this, focus on describing the action in a way that's clear and impactful. Instead of trying to show every little movement, zoom in on key moments that stand out. The clash of blades, the shattering of a shield, or the sheer force of a cavalry charge. Use precise, vivid language to ground the reader in the moment. For example, the arrow pierced his armor, finding the soft gap between the plates, is far more gripping than he was hit by an arrow. Clarity ensures your readers feel the action, rather than struggling to picture it.
Another powerful tool is alternating POVs during the battle. Shifting between characters allows you to showcase the chaos and scale of the conflict while keeping the tension high. For example, you might start with a general commanding from a hilltop, move to a foot soldier in the thick of the melee, and then from a scout watching from the tree line. The timing is key. Transition between POVs in moments of rising tension or just before a major impact. This keeps the narrative flowing smoothly and prevents the pacing from stalling. Think of the shifts as cameras in a movie. They should enhance the story, not pull the audience out of it. Do it in a way to make the tension progressively build instead of being cut by a POV switch in which nothing's happening after one full of impact and conflict.
Lastly, don't forget the human element. The best battle scenes are about people. Show how the characters feel in the heat of the moment. Are they scared, exhilarated, or desperate? How does the battle change them? A soldier's trembling hands as they pick up a weapon for the first time, or a commander's split-second decision that costs lives can be just as powerful as the clash of armies. And remember, battles are messy. Characters should face consequences, wounds, losses, or moral compromises.
When readers care about the people in the fight, the battle itself matters far more. Use the battle scenes as a way to showcase characterization. If a soldier is established as reckless, make sure to describe them attacking the enemy without a lot of forethought and potentially endangering his allies. The commandant is overly ambitious and doesn't care about anything else besides the glory of victory. Establish him making decisions in the battlefield that would sacrifice parts of his army. Every plot point is a chance to further characterize the people in your story, and a battle scene would be no different.
Writing war strategy in an engaging way means finding the balance between complexity and clarity. Strategy can feel dry or overwhelming if you bog readers down with too many details, so focus on the essentials, the key decisions and stakes driving the conflict. Think about what the characters know versus what they don't. A general planning an ambush doesn't need to explain every troop movement, but the tension of whether the enemy will fall into the trap is gripping. Use moments of uncertainty, like a scout returning with unexpected news or the sudden appearance of reinforcements, to keep readers invested in the strategy's outcome. The focus should always be on the why behind decisions, why a risky flank maneuver is worth it, or why sacrificing one position might save the rest.
Another way to make a strategy come alive is by weaving it into character dynamics and the environment. A strategy often reveals a lot about a character. Are they cunning, bold, or desperate? Commander might argue with their advisors or take an unorthodox approach that sets them apart. Meanwhile, the environment can add layers of drama. A carefully laid plan might unravel when a rainstorm bogs down the cavalry or the terrain gives the enemy an advantage. Don't just tell the readers the strategy, show its impact as the story unfolds. The thrill comes from seeing how clever plans can succeed or catastrophically fail, based on the decisions characters make and obstacles they face.
When writing war strategy on a higher level, between leaders of kingdoms or factions, the focus shifts from immediate tactics to the grander scope of politics, resources, and alliances. This is where the stakes grow even larger. Every decision carries ripple effects that shape the entire war. Highlight the interplay of personalities at the strategy table. A cautious king might clash with an ambitious warlord, while a cunning diplomat subtly manipulates the conversation toward their own agenda. Include the weight of the leaders' dilemmas, how much they're willing to sacrifice for victory, or whether they risk betrayal by unreliable allies. This kind of planning thrives on tension, where every move feels like a gamble, and the consequences could mean the fall of a kingdom or the survival of an empire. Make these discussions emotionally charged, as much about the characters' fears and ambitions as the plans themselves.
The difference between strategy and tactics come down to the big picture versus the here and now. Strategy is all about long-term goals. What are you trying to achieve and the broader plan to get there? It's the general deciding to cut off the enemy's supply lines, to weaken them over time, or choosing the battlefield that gives them an advantage. Tactics, on the other hand, are the immediate action taken to win in the moment, like deploying archers to take out an advancing cavalry charge or sending a small team to flank the enemy. Think of strategy as the chessboard and tactics as the individual moves. Great stories weave them together, showing how small tactical decisions can make or break a larger strategic plan. It's in the push and pull of these levels that the tension in the battle can really come alive.
Battles are like pressure cookers for character growth. They strip characters down to their rawest form, exposing who they are under pressure. A coward might discover bravery in the face of overwhelming odds, or a hardened warrior might show vulnerability as they face the weight of their decisions. Think of Jon Snow in the Battle of the Bastards. He fights to reclaim his family's honor and prove himself as a leader. Every decision he makes, right or wrong, defines him in that moment and changes how we see him as a character. That's what makes battles so much more than just action. They're opportunities to show who your characters really are.
And let's not forget what battles do to relationship. They test everything: loyalty, trust, and even love. A trusted ally might run when things get tough, or someone unexpected might risk it all to save a friend. It's where betrayal stings the hardest and revenge feels the sharpest.
War and battles are gold mines for world building because they force you to show how your world really works under pressure. Who's fighting and why? Are they professional soldiers, conscripted farmers, or mercenaries fighting for coin? What weapons and tactics do they use, and how does the terrain, mountains, deserts, or magical wastelands, shape the conflict? Even small details, like what the soldiers eat or how they treat their wounded, can reveal so much about the culture, resources, and priorities of the people involved.
Use your battles to immerse readers in the world. The tactics used, the terrain of the battlefield, the culture of the warriors. All of these details can tell us so much about the societies involved. Are the soldiers disciplined knights, wild berserkers, or reluctant conscripts? Does the kingdom rely on cavalry because their plains stretch endlessly, or is it magic that turns the tide? Battle can reveal the priorities and values of a society, or even the technological and magical resources available to them. Through the chaos, we learn how this world operates.
Every great battle scene hits harder when it ties directly into the themes of your story. Think of Avatar during the final battle for Pandora. Not exactly the best movie ever, but it really establishes clearly the clash of two ideologies: corporate greed versus the harmony of nature. The stakes in the battle echo the movie's central theme, protecting what's sacred against exploitation.
When you design a battle, ask yourself, what does this fight represent beyond the action? It's a chance to amplify the heart of your story, making the conflict feel bigger.
The emotions your audience walks away with are just as important as the visuals. Take Mad Max Fury Road. The final chase scene feels like a battle, and every moment is packed with desperation, redemption, and hope. You're rooting for Furiosa to reclaim her freedom and for Max to find a sense of purpose.
When planning a battle, think about how you want your audience to feel. Thrilled, victorious, or even heartbroken. Those emotions make the fight linger in their minds long after it's over.
Your soldiers can take inspiration in historically infamous warrior cultures. When we think of historical warriors, knights are often the first that come to mind. Shining armor, swords, and a strict code of chivalry. Knights were symbols of feudal loyalty, fighting for their lords and kings in exchange for land and status. Their style of combat reflected this structure. Heavily armored and on horseback, they were the tanks of their time, built for charging into battle with lances and cutting through infantry. War for knights was tied to their honor. Tournaments, duels, and even the rules of engagement were as much about proving one's worth as winning the fight. Vikings, on the other hand, were brutal and practical warriors, fighting less for loyalty and more for survival, wealth, and glory. These Norse raiders were known for their speed and ferocity, favoring hit and run tactics in their longship. Vikings treated war as a means to secure resources and fame. Their weapons, axes, shields, and swords were straightforward but effective, designed for close, bloody combat, and their view of death in battle was unique. Dying with a weapon in hand was considered honorable, granting them passage to Valhalla, a warrior's afterlife. This belief fueled their fearless and often reckless approach to war. Samurai, by contrast, brought a philosophical perspective to warfare. These Japanese warriors followed Bushido, a code that emphasized loyalty, discipline, and honor, similar to knights, but with a spiritual element. Samurai were skilled swordsmen, but they also mastered archery and horsemanship, making them versatile fighters. For them, war was an extension of their duty to their lords. Failure in battle or disgrace could lead to ritual suicide, showing how intertwined their identity was with the concept of honor. Samurai blended combat with an almost meditative discipline, treating war as both an art and a responsibility. The aftermath of a battle is often where the real drama lies. War leaves scars, not just on the body, but on the mind. Characters might deal with survivor's guilt, PTSD, or overwhelming grief for the friends they lost. Maybe a once optimistic hero becomes withdrawn and bitter, or a hardened warrior finally breaks under the weight of everything they've endured. These moments give your characters depth and make their experiences feel real. It's about winning the fight as well as about the cost of surviving it. A battle also doesn't have to end when the swords are sheathed. Wars can topple kingdoms, leave economies in shambles, and create power vacuums that spark rebellions. Maybe a once great kingdom is now struggling with famine and discontent among its people, or a newly crowned ruler finds their grip on power threatened by those who see weakness in victory. These broader consequences show the ripple effects of war, making your world feel alive and dynamic. In Dune, the aftermath of House Atreides' fall reveals the political and emotional toll of war. Paul Atreides loses his father, his home, and the life he once knew. The destruction of his house plunges him into the harsh realities of survival on Arrakis, forcing him to confront his destiny as a leader. The larger political ripples are felt in the shifting alliances and the power vacuum left by the Atreides, setting the stage for rebellion. The book and film adaptation emphasize that war reshapes entire legacies and cultures.
The real drama of a battle often comes afterwards. War leaves scars. Characters might wrestle with guilt, grief, and the weight of everything they've been through. The effects of war can ripple through entire kingdoms, topple rulers, wreck economies, and spark rebellions. A kingdom might be left in famine, or a victorious ruler might find their throne shaky as rivals close in. These consequences breathe life into your story, showing that war doesn't just end with the fighting.
Battles in fantasy should also be about everything else happening around them. They're opportunities to show character growth, test relationships, and reinforce the themes of your story. The strategy behind them reveals how your world operates, from the politics of alliances to the desperation of the battlefield. And don't forget the aftermath. That's where the real consequences shine. From the emotional scars of survivors to the power struggles and societal upheavals left behind. A well-written battle makes your story more immersive and impactful.
So, what do you think makes a battle scene unforgettable? Is the raw emotion, the strategy, or the ripple effects that follow? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you've written your own battle scenes, feel free to share how you approach them. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into storytelling and fantasy world building if you like what we're doing here. And if you voted for the dark fantasy world building video, stick around, that's coming up next.
Come join our Tavern discussion of fantasy storytelling and world building here at Loregeist. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching, and may your tales be ever epic.